Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to use today's slate, this one-game showdown slate in the NBA as reference, but I really just want to talk about a more longer-term strategy, I guess if you can say, for these NBA showdown slates and give my take on these NBA showdown slates as they're going to become more of the norm during the rest of the playoffs, especially once we get past this second round of the playoffs and we get into the conference finals when there's only going to be 4 teams playing 2 games, 1 game a night pretty much. So yeah, we might get blessed with some 2-game slates, maybe even a 3-game slate during these semifinals, 8 teams remaining. But I highly doubt it, right? So we're going to have a 1-game slate tonight. We have a 1-game slate tomorrow with the Warriors not able to finish out that series in 5, which surprises me. I'm sure we're going to have one wise fellow drop down. I thought it was going to be a sweep because I said something about that. Yeah, I think everybody in the world did. So, except you. So, yeah, we're just going to break down into this. So I might reference, and this is actually tomorrow's slate, so right here. This is tomorrow's slate, so I'm not on tonight's slate. Or actually, I'm all over the place. This is tonight's slate. I'm sorry, it is early in the morning. It is like 7 in the morning. This is tonight's slate. I'm still thinking that it is Thursday. Last night, the Spurs got it to Game 7, so they're actually going to be playing. They're going to get a 2-game slate since the Sixers start on Saturday. So tonight's 8, Golden State, the Clippers, Game 6 tonight. Pretty entertaining because now it's back in LAC where the Clippers have actually played worse, believe it or not. All their stars have played worse. Harrell, Lou Williams, all these guys. So I want to talk through pretty much high-level strategy for a showdown slate. I could fill in some guys here. This is different than what I usually do, right? So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Sal. I cover daily fantasy sports and majority of the major sports, right? NFL, NBA being the primary sports. I cover some golf. Going to be covering golf way more now. Not this week, though, because there's no real PGA event. And then I'll be covering MLB more and more throughout the summer, WNBA, things of that nature, preseason. This is what my stuff usually looks like, right? I have some data here. I share injuries. There's really no injuries in the playoffs anymore. Early interest. This is from a couple nights ago. I have my projections, things like that. But on these 1-game slates, it can't be that much broken down, right? I can't go into all of that and try and break it down. There's really no injuries. We only have 2 teams we're trying to compare, so there's really not much in terms of trying to find defensive matchups because it's so variant, right? So here's the thing. Showdown started with the NFL this year, right? And I burned through a lot of money in Showdown because whenever there's a new game mode that comes out, especially if there's high prize pools, right? People ask me, do I play tiers? I don't, because the highest prize pools are like $5,000. If I'm gonna take down I have a very small chance of taking down a tiers, right? It's like less than a 1% chance if there's thousands of people in it. So why do I want to take those odds? Why don't I put them somewhere else where I can win more money rather than just winning $5,000 if it's similar odds, right? So that's why I don't play tiers. I played Showdown in the NFL because they were having $250,000 prize pools on Monday nights and Thursday nights, and I burned through my money. I think there's only a few ways to gain edges in showdowns, and it really doesn't translate over to the NBA. So let's look at the NFL, right? A couple ways to gain edges. Personally, I believe that to gain an edge in the NFL, one way to do this would be to enter 150 lineups. You can then predict different game flows. So for the NFL, if one team gets down early, they're in a more pass-friendly environment. They're going to have to pass a lot more. The team who's ahead will likely, at least later in the game, run a little bit more. So you could build 20 lineups around that. You could build 20 lineups around a complete blowout for one side, right? So you can get the quarterback and 2 wide receivers from the team that's trailing, running back from the other side. You can predict a low-scoring game. So you get the defenses, maybe a kicker, and then you take a couple of players who you think would be beneficial in a low-scoring game. So you can build 20 lineups around all these different standpoints, and then if you pick the right standpoint, now you have 20, 30 lineups compared to other people who are really just entering one or not even getting the right game flow. So that's something that I don't think can really be replicated in the NBA. Just because it doesn't impact the way the game is played, right? If a team gets down by 20, yeah, they might shoot some more threes, right? But it's not going to impact specific players' usage and things like that. If anything, it would ruin it. It would make players have to come out of the game. So I guess you can predict blowout run, but not really anything else. So that's one way that you could do it in the NFL. I don't really think it's the biggest edge, but if you're entering 100, well, I think that is the biggest edge if you're entering 150 lineups, but I don't think it's the best edge. I think Showdown overall is a terrible format, and I think it's just going to continue to steal money from people rather than really offer any edge. Another way in the NFL is to fade the highly owned players. We had 4 or 5 times, I covered all the Showdown slates because there were such big prize pools at stake, right? 250,000 at the minimum. It was like 150,000 on Thursday nights. It was crazy. So fading guys, I remember one Thursday night, Leonard Fournette was projected to be like 80 to 90% owned. He came in at like 91% owned. And I said, look, this is a team sport, of course, it's football. So Leonard Fournette is not just going to take the ball and automatically dominate. And he had a tough matchup against the Tennessee Titans, tough defensive front. It relied on his offensive linemen. Obviously, it relied on the entire team in terms of they had to keep the game close and not get down. In that game, Tennessee shut him down. He didn't score a touchdown. He rushed for I think a handful of yards. He had 8 or 9 fantasy points. He was not needed in the winning lineups, and only 9% of people faded him. And I was one of them, and I entered 10 lineups. I faded him in 6. I was overweight the field and fading him. I didn't win anything huge, but that was a night Derrick Henry just went absolutely bonkers for 3 touchdowns and 200 yards, I think. But the point there being is that you can fade those highly owned players in the NFL and gain some leverage because they don't kind of control their own fate more so than in basketball. I don't think you can fade high owned players in basketball. We saw last night, Jokic. Look, I don't know what his ownership ended up being in the big contest. I didn't play it, but he went off, right? He scored 120 points with a 1.5 point bonus. And look, even if he stinks and he scores 40 points or his bottom or lower tier of what his projection should be, you still need him, whether it's in the captain spot or not. 40 points in a 1-game sample size. In the NBA, there's only going to be 3 players in a game max that'll touch 40 or more points, 4 if the game is very competitive, right? So you need that. So it's really hard for me to ever say fade the highly owned players. So then you're not gaining an edge on the field. It's really tough to gain an edge on the field. In the NFL, you can do that and feel fairly confident that a guy like Leonard Fournette, sure, he'll have some games when he scores 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, he scores 25 fantasy points, but he'll also have games in the single digits. So the fact that he's 90+% owned makes me go, okay, I'm very easily going to just underweight this, even if it's 2 out of my 10 lineups fading him. Then I only have 80% of him, or take an aggressive stance like I did and fade him in 60% of my lineups. So that just wasn't a one-time thing. Zeke Elliott wasn't needed in a winning lineup. Saquon Barkley wasn't needed in a winning lineup. I remember there was many occurrences where guys were 80+% owned. Derek Carr the one night was 86% owned on Thursday night when Nick Mullins started. Now this is for people who don't watch NFL. You're like, oh, well, what does this have to do with anything? It's just showing that there's different edges in the NFL. I still don't think they're enough to really be profitable at all in Showdown, but there's at least different ways to try and gain an edge. The only way that I think you can really gain an edge, and there's 2, I guess, and only one of them translates to the playoffs for the NBA, and you could also do it very easily in the NFL, in any sport really, is to leave money on the table. So if you're building a lineup, and we could just build one, right? You could take this lineup if you want. I don't give out lineups. I'm literally doing this as an example to show you leaving money on the table. So let's say tonight you were like, okay, I'm going to play this a little bit more contrarian. I think that obviously these 3 options up top are going to be the most popularly owned captains, probably in that order for the most part. So let's say tonight's a Clay day. Clay, once every 3 months, goes off for 40 points, right? Let's say that that's tonight in a game 6 where they need to win. He shoots the lights out. Let's say that you get on the other side of that a Lou Williams, and let's just fill this out, right? You got an Andre Iguodala seeing mid-20s in minutes a game. You have Pat Beverly playing extremely well, staying out there to defend KD. And now let's say if we have Lou Williams, we want Harrell sort of as a leverage. And then we can get Draymond. So you're fading Steph and KD, right? This is a very contrarian type lineup. It's probably not a good lineup, but I really can't tell you what's good or not in these showdown slates. So what we did here is we left $1,600 on the table. Now, a lot of people in this situation would say, hey, we can get up off of Lou Williams and get KD here. Let's do it. And that's probably a good idea just in terms of raw projections, right? And maybe if you're playing cash. But if you're playing a tournament, now you only have $200 left on the table. So how many people are going to have this lineup? I would say if you're playing the big tournament where there's 27,000 people, I'd say 50, if not probably closer to hundreds of people. There's just so many ways you can build lineups and so many ways you can get good quality players in there. And a lineup like this screams out to me that hundreds of people are going to have this. So if this lineup binks and wins it all, yes, you want it all, right? In theory, but then you're splitting that $100,000 300 ways, and now you're taking home $300, $400. That's great. That's good if you only put $15 in, or maybe you enter 10 lineups and put $150 in and you double or triple your money. But the odds of you winning this tournament, I did the math. I have it literally right here in my calculator. 0.003%. You want to round it up, 0.004%. That are the odds. That's not a tenth of a percentage. That is not a hundredth of a percentage. That is 4/1000ths of a percentage of winning this outright. So if you're going to have such a small chance of doing that, don't you want to just win all of the money? It's so hard. It's so rare to do this. You're not going to do it. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're not going to win the showdown. If you come back tomorrow and you win it, rub it in my face. But I feel pretty good at my odds of 99.907% or 99.997%, whatever it is, that you probably won't win it, right? At least the thousands of people, or 1,000 people that watch this won't. So I don't like Showdown. That's a big reason why. There's slim odds, and when you do actually win, the odds of you splitting it with somebody are extremely higher than any other slate, even a 2-game slate. So the ways to differentiate, and the only real way in the playoffs that I see to differentiate, is to just leave money on the table. Now, I'm not purposely trying to fade these guys in terms of KD and Steph, because I think that you're going to need one of them. I'm just trying to show a way to easily leave money on the table. Avoiding those two shows that. So leaving $1,600 on the table, I think, is more than fine. It's a one game. You're still getting players that all, for the most part, are going to play 30-plus minutes in this game. Iggy closer to the high 20s. So this is just an example for tonight. But the overall strategy of just leaving money on the table, it's easy. There's no analytics behind it. And it's just, in my opinion, the right thing to do if you want to win, or at least split with less people. Not many people will leave $1,600 on the table. They're going to get scared, and they're going to go, oh my God, I have so much money left over. How do I get up? Let me get up off of Draymond to Denal. Oh my God, I have $800 left. How do I get rid of this? Okay, Lou Williams will go to Steph. Okay, now I feel better. And they'll just automatically go up to spend their money, when in retrospect, they're probably losing EV, either because they're making a worse lineup, but on a one-game slate, it's really hard to judge if you're making a good or bad lineup, because you just want to embrace variance. But either way, if you're letting money factor into that, I think that's bad, especially on a one-game slate, because everybody's going to be doing that. So that's the only real way in the playoffs that I see gaining an edge. The other way in the regular season, and we had a great example of this with about 2 or 3 weeks left in the regular season, there was a game on a Sunday at noon. It was the Bucks and the Hawks. If you follow the NBA, you probably remember it. It was an overtime game. The Hawks were up huge, and then it went to overtime. Or the Bucks were up huge, and then it went to overtime. The Bucks sat Middleton, Giannis, Tony Snell, and then Eric Bledsoe was not starting, but they said he's available, but he didn't see a minute off the bench. And all of this news came out with probably like 7 minutes until lock, right? And again, it's a Sunday at noon, so nobody's really paying attention. Anybody who already set their lineups is probably like, okay, I'm just hanging out on a Sunday. I'm going to hang with the family. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to do whatever, right? Maybe have a drink. So that's why I love Sundays, because nobody's really paying attention as much. It's more relaxed, just the environment in general. We ended up getting Bledsoe, who, by all accounts, it did not seem he was going to play. Coming off the bench, why play him if you're not playing these other guys? He was at like 17% on. Middleton was in the 20s in ownership. Didn't even start, right? Didn't even play in the game. So in situations where you know you're going to get insane leverage, that's the only Showdown slate. I think I played 2 Showdown slates all year. That was one of them. The other one was the NBA All-Star game. And I actually took down that Showdown slate. It was like a 100 and something person field for a qualifier ticket. Nothing crazy. And then the other one I took down for like a couple, like 100 or 200 bucks. Look, nothing crazy. I wish I got into the bigger one that day. But when you go into a tournament and 40% of the field is playing 2 guys who aren't even going to play, and then obviously Giannis, you had like 8% on him, and like 50% of the field at least has people in their lineups or around there that aren't playing. Oh, you have such great leverage, right? You're automatically in a situation where if you just play some of the better or higher key guys, that you're in a situation to just profit. And that's what I did. That's what most of the field did, and it was just easy to profit on that day. That's not going to happen in the playoffs, right? The news is going to be much more important. There's going to be way more eyes, even on a Sunday at noon, which we don't have games at that time. But even on a Sunday at noon, there's going to be way more eyes on it, because it's not the Bucks secondary team versus the terrible Trae Young and the Hawks team. So I don't think that edge, and you're also not going to just have 3 to 4 starters sitting with 7 minutes left, right? Even if they're up 3-0 in the series, this is the playoffs, that's not happening. So you don't have that luxury of that edge. So really, I think just leaving money on the table is the only way in NBA to gain an edge. And let me reinforce this, you will not win. If you're playing head-to-head, sure. You got a 50% chance at winning if the guy you're playing you're better than, sure. You got a greater than 50% chance, 55%, whatever you think your edge is. If you're playing these tournaments, you have a less than 100th of a percentage of a chance to win. Now, you might say, Sal, well, some guys are just going to build terrible lineups, and some guys won't check their lineups, or they'll enter dead lineups, they'll reserve it, and they won't enter. Sure. So I'll give you, which is multiplying it by 100, I'll give you a 1/10% chance of winning. Or multiplying it by 1,000, I'll give you a 1/10% chance of winning. Not 1%, 1/10, which is still way too high. Like, that's not realistic. If you think that you have that luck and that you're going to hit and bink something, that's fine by me. I mean, somebody's got to win it, right? But at the end of the day, when you do bink that, you're most likely splitting it with, I don't know, on average, I think last night the optimal lineup split it 75 ways. Took home only a few $100s instead of thousands of dollars, or took home maybe $1,000 instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the idea of playing this slate, because this right here, this $100,000 prize pool looks so tempting, just know that the only way you're going to get your hands on that $100,000 prize pool is if you leave, honestly, 1,000 at a minimum on the table, probably 1,500 plus, and then a lot of things go right for you. Because if you're leaving that much money on the table, you are missing out on important players. You are going to miss out on a KD, on a Steph, on a Lou Williams, on 2 of them probably at least. Or you're just going to play 2 or 3 of them and then fill it in with a bunch of garbage down here, which again, you're going to end up building bad lineups. But on these showdown slates, and really just GPP slates in general, bad lineups usually win, right? They're the ones, if it was optimal and everybody knew about them, like the chalk hits, then everybody would be winning GPPs, and that's not how it is. So showdown slates, I wanted to make this video specifically to look at this. Again, take this lineup if you want. I literally entered players, so you're probably not going to win with it just in general. You're probably not going to win with that one. I will continue to not play the showdown slates. Once we get that $1 million one, I think I have 1 or 2 qualifying tickets for. You can see maybe you can't see, I have 8 tickets up here. A couple of those are for the $1 million. It's like May 30th. I don't know if, I'm assuming that's the NBA Finals maybe? Is that like the start of the NBA Finals? We have a $1 million prize pool for that, so I'll play because I have free tickets. But in general, I just don't like showdowns. I burned way too much money during the NFL. Again, I do think there are better ways to gain edges in the NFL when you see them, but I don't think you could do those same edges. I don't think you can fade the popular players and feel confident, because tonight, Steph and KD are both not going to go for below 40 points, right? One of them is going to get there, and for the most part, there's a great chance both of them score 35 or more points, and on a 1-game slate, you probably need that most times than not, them getting 35 to 40 points each. So maybe not in this series where it's going to be higher scoring, but just in general. So it's tough. I don't recommend playing Showdown as much as I like playing DFS. It is the worst format, I believe. I'd rather play tiers, even if it is lower, especially for the NBA, where it's just so much more variant on a night in and night out basis. In terms of, I guess I shouldn't say that because the NFL is way more variant. You can project NBA better than a sport like the NFL. But what I just mean by variant is in terms of the entire just competitive and competition field, just how many more people you can slice out pretty much all these guys down here, right? Where in the NFL, you probably have a receiver who gets on the field for 10 snaps and maybe he catches a touchdown and now he's dirt cheap at $1,000 and you need him. For the NBA, it's really, nothing comes really into play until the $3,600 range. So it's just so much harder to actually get a lineup that is, so variant was probably the wrong word. It's just so much harder to get a lineup that is unique, even leaving money on the table. So just wanted to come on. I know people yesterday were asking me about the showdown slate. Why didn't I make a video about it? It's just all the same. Like, what am I going to do? Tell you to play, I mean, in cash, play the highest projected player. So yesterday that was Jokic, and then fit as many good players as you can and find the cheap player that plays the most minutes, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I can't reinvent the wheel there. That's not going to win you tournaments because one, everybody's going to do it, and it's too straightforward. Like, we can't predict exactly how an individual game is going to go out, right? We can predict out of 13 games on a slate which ones are the best to target, but on a 1-game slate, you're forced to pick these plays, right? So that's it. 10 o'clock game tonight. Interested just in terms of real-life basketball. Can they force a Game 7 at home in the first round? That would scare a lot of people on this Warriors team for sure. So yeah, that's it. Want to just make somewhat of a quick video just to kind of talk about this. And yeah, if you have any questions just about Showdown in general, let me know. I'm going to be doing a little bit more in terms of the NBA is coming to an end, right? These Showdown slates I'm not going to be covering as much. I'm not going to be playing them as much. You can get projections if you want for them, but I'm going to be covering more golf. This week the PGA isn't there. I'm going to be covering more NFL offseason, probably in a month or so now that the draft is over. Probably do more season-long type stuff in terms of just rankings by position, you know, stuff that people actually like to see during the offseason when the NFL season is getting closer. We will also get into the preseason NFL, which I'm excited for, and also WNBA, which I'm very excited for. So lots of things in the works, not only just for the channel, for myself graduating. Officially, as of right now, took my last exam this morning, done with college, 5-year master's program, wrapped up, on to the next stage of life. Got to look for some jobs now in Raleigh. And hopefully something DFS-wise pops up, because that would be a dream. So before you leave, hit me with a thumbs up. Let me know if you have any more questions. If you think there's a better edge in this Showdown slate, drop it down below. I want to know. I mean, I didn't think too much about it because I don't play it. I don't play it, but I kind of translated what I know from the NFL into the NBA and what I know from the NBA in terms of just trying to find your edges. So thank you. Appreciate it. My name's Sal. Best of luck to everybody. Peace out, gang.